With my last video, I discussed how bullet drag for Battlefield 6 has been increased, resulting in sniper rifle rounds losing velocity over distance, meaning the rounds slow down and drop more as a result. On the surface, I don't mind this idea as it provides another tool for DICE to balance sniper rifles and create more identity, especially when it comes to separating aggressive rifles from ones designed for longer ranges. Granted, the more I think about how players actually read and learn mechanics of these games, the less certain I am that the drag system is the best way to accomplish this. So today I want to discuss my ideas overall about the system along with the good and bad parts of it. When muzzle velocity is the main balancing difference, sniper rifles can start feeling interchangeable. A rifle with faster muzzle velocity will require less lead and less holdover at range, while a slower one requires more. This is an easy difference to understand, but ultimately it only gives the developers one major variable for separating trajectory of the sniper rifles themselves. So drag allows for another dimension to be at play here. An example could be one rifle having higher initial muzzle velocity, but losing speed over range, thus making it strong inside medium ranges, but dropping off at further distances, while another rifle could have a bit slower muzzle velocity initially, but retaining that velocity better over range, making it more reliable at further distances. This is something we can already kind of see in Battlefield 6 right now between a weapon such as the Mini Scout and the L115 with long-range ammunition. So ultimately this can help create clearer roles between rifles without it coming down to whatever one has the highest muzzle velocity. This also rewards some familiarity with a specific weapon, as when somebody spends time learning a specific rifle, then they will become more consistent with it than somebody who's constantly switching between guns. Granted, as a result of that, you may be starting to see what the downsides that come with this are. So this leads me into the downsides that I see when it comes to utilizing drag in these ways. When velocity is the dominant factor, it allows us to learn the lead and drop for one rifle and transfer at least some of that knowledge to the next. If the next rifle has slightly lower velocity, then we probably know to lead or aim a bit higher as a result, and this means that the relationship here is intuitive. But with drag, two rifles can be nearly the same in terms of muzzle velocity while behaving very differently once the bullet travels a few hundred meters. A rifle with a higher muzzle velocity could potentially become slower down range because it loses speed more aggressively, and at that point, the list of muzzle velocities becomes incomplete or potentially a misleading way to judge a gun itself. This ultimately leads to a less readable and intuitive system, as we now no longer can just adjust based on a specific visible number, but memorizing a specific ballistic curve for every single rifle that's in the game, and that's without even considering the different ammunition types here. So when it comes to weapon mastery, this is something that clearly can allow for greater weapon mastery on an individual level for each gun. So this is not something I disagree with, because I do think there should be some benefit to learning a weapon rather than treating every gun as interchangeable. But the weapon mastery thing is most satisfying when those trade-offs are also understandable and readable. When it comes to executing a shot through trying to estimate range, judging movement, and applying correct lead, this can be more difficult if the game is not clearly communicating how quickly these bullets are going to be losing velocity. When it comes to sniper rifles, this distinction matters a lot, even if they're supposed to be used at longer ranges. With automatic weapons, the first few rounds can allow us to correct for the other rounds. While sniper rifles can have some immediate feedback as well, the follow-up shots are much slower, so there's less margin for error, and a miss is much more costly as a result. I'm not sure if the other weapons in the game also have drag, but again, it won't matter as much when compared to the sniper rifles. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that DICE needs to remove drag from the game. This is something that has been utilized with success in prior games, and if I remember correctly, PUBG also implemented this kind of system. They utilize muzzle velocity and drag oftentimes to ensure different rifles aligned with the various sights in the game. So if an enemy was 400 meters away, then the corresponding mil dot would help you land that shot even between rifles. So my main problem with this system really comes down to whether or not the game is exposing enough information other than just pure muzzle velocity. It's difficult to know how much bullet drop on a rifle there's actually going to be at those longer ranges. So they could maybe add something like a chart showing retained velocity at different distances, therefore giving us some idea as to where the drop may be. But ultimately, without something like this, it does create more of a complicated system to learn, and it also just isn't as clean. If I remember correctly, Battlefield 4 had a somewhat similar problem here. What they did was separate muzzle velocity from the amount of gravity that was applied to the projectile. And if I remember correctly from all my time playing that game, this did add some identity between the sniper rifles, but it also made them less intuitive. Muzzle velocity alone didn't tell us the complete trajectory that was going to be expected, and drag creates a similar issue here for Battlefield 6, except now it can affect both the bullet drop and the amount of lead required because the bullet is actively losing speed throughout its flight. So there are clearly two sides of this debate, and I'm unsure which side I'm completely on. This kind of system does give DICE more control over weapon identity through allowing rifles to behave differently without being solely dependent on initial velocity, but it also reduces consistency between rifles and makes the ballistic knowledge here less transferable as a result. This is also something that doesn't completely impact the other weapon types in the game in a similar manner either, but the problem here isn't that every sniper rifle has a different trajectory, but that muzzle velocity is no longer giving us, as players, a reliable way to predict that trajectory. I do think sniping should have some difficulty, but not because the system is difficult to read. So, do you think bullet drag is creating more meaningful weapon identity, or is it just making the sniper rifles harder to read and less intuitive? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. I'll catch you on the next one. RAMTEID out.